Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello to you and welcome back to the channel on a typically British afternoon. The weather today is all over the place. We've had some torrential rain, but fortunately right now it's eased off because behind me is the new Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. It's a brute in a suit, but it's a car that I'm particularly interested in as one that maybe in the future I should consider adding to the garage. Of course, you'll remember my previous Aston Martin Vanquish Volante. The new DBS is effectively the spiritual successor to that as Aston Martin's flagship Super GT. So let's take a look around the car, talk about it. My first time then will follow to drive the car and experience what it's like. We're here at the moment at Dunsfold Park, the home of Top Gear. We've been filming some videos with Lovecars, but then also hopefully take it out for some driving on the roads to see what it's like there as well. But let's get started then and have a quick look around before jumping in, out of the rain, into the dry to experience more with the DBS. Here we go then. It might be wet and pretty horrible today, but the car is looking good. It's sporty, it's aggressive, and remember, this is a car that has 725 horsepower and 900 Newton meters of torque from the 5.2 litre twin turbocharged V12. Of course, it's front engined, it's rear wheel drive, it's that Grand Tourer formula, lots of luggage space, a 2+2 seating configuration, an ideal car for going on long drives, road trips across the continent, and just doing it in style and comfort while you're on your way. In terms of the Aero, it makes 180 kilos of downforce, and this car goes on to a top speed of 211 miles per hour, 340 kilometers per hour, and it does so with the exhaust at the back making an incredibly impressive sound while it's at it. There are a few new bits of Aero work that have been introduced. So for example, around the front, you have the ginormous gaping grille. That is of course for airflow through the car to maximise the cooling where possible. You've also got the openings on the front of the bonnet to let the air come back out. Around the side, you've got the new side louvres, a development of the curlicues that were found on the DB11, again to reduce the air swelling that you get in the front wheel wells. The whole car is about 70 kilos lighter than the DB11, in at 1,700 or so, and it's actually a bit wider too. It's 10 millimeters wider at the front, 20 millimeters wider at the rear, and it's actually a touch shorter to help with the weight distribution. We've got an 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox, but let's take a quick look at the interior. Not overly changed. There's a new seat style, a few new elements to the trim. It's stealthy in the way it appears. Gone are the more silver accents that you'd have around the car, but you've got the digital screens, the squared off steering wheel, the different driving modes. Anywho, it is quite windy right at this moment, so let us take a step inside here and just fire it into life. Take a listen to this. So we've got the key right here, the Aston Martin key, can sit into that little pocket, and then start it up. It makes an awesome burble, so you can pop it now into Sport Plus. You can hear the exhaust valves opening as we do that, and just take a listen to the sound of this engine note. Those crackles and burbles are fantastic. The sound of this engine, when you consider that it's a twin turbocharged V12 that we have up front, sounds so good. It's no longer that naturally aspirated noise that you found in the Vanquish and the Vanquish S and the previous generation. Of course, this has a development of the DB11's engine, and I think most importantly, a development of the 8-speed gearbox to handle that extra power as well. But when we get back later on, I'll show you more around the interior and the technology that we have available in here. All I'm hoping right now is that this isn't going to be too wet to cause a problem, because of course we have over 700 horsepower all to the rear wheels and it's looking pretty wet out there. But in any case, let's take it out for a drive and see what it's like. Now this is quite a fun place to start this video. The engine is warm, other people have been driving it. Of course, I do now have the low sun right in front of me. It's in the afternoon, we're getting towards winter, unfortunately. That is a side effect of these things. So we have the powertrain gearbox side of things in Sport Plus, and just listen to that heavenly soundtrack. The dampers are currently in their comfortable GT mode. Let's put those into Sport as well. But here we are, on a runway, an opportunity to just enjoy the experience, being careful, Listen to this. It's amazing, honestly. I was really worried that the car might lose some of the soundtrack that you got in the Vanquish S. To be honest, the Vanquish S sounded absolutely phenomenal. It's not quite as thunderously raw as that car was, I would say, but it's not like it's lacking. I mean, nobody could ever say that this was a problem in the sound department. Just all the noises coming into the cabin. Now, this is not a complete racetrack at the moment, so we can't completely hoon it around here. So let's pop it actually back into comfortable settings, GT, and there we go, GT mode suspension as well. You can feel the wallowing of the car. It's softer, it's leaning over a little bit more. It's just riding. I mean, we're on very reasonably smooth terrain, I would say. We'll head out onto the roads afterwards and find some bumpy countryside. But you're driving in here, the seating position is comfortable. Of course, I've been lucky enough to drive a few DB11s, including my dad's DB11, so I know a fair bit about the experience and what they're like and what it's like as a car overall. One that is GT with a bit of sporty characteristic mixed into it. In this, though, it is much more towards the sports end of the spectrum, and I'm going to pop it back into Sport Plus and sportier suspension. Just drop some gears for a moment and just... yeah, there we go, there's traction saying, no, be careful. It is a little bit wet today. However, it's still awesome, good fun as well. So what happens then, and this is really complicated, if you go in the system to settings, you can't see what I'm doing at the moment, but I'm going to assistance to go to ESP to put it into track mode, which you do through the computer as opposed to doing it through the with a fixed button. But then, yeah, the car is very happy to have a play around. Very, very happy. I'm not going to turn it completely off because that will probably get me in trouble today. In fourth gear, the torque is just phenomenal. Now, obviously, I'm having to be careful with the slight slip we have from the water that's on the surface, but you can feel so much of that. As it gets up towards the top end of the rev range, you can feel so much power out of it. So much. So we've got to ease off again as we come back round towards the beginning of the circuit. But how cool is this to have some open space to just enjoy the car and discover a bit about it. It's very, very responsive on the throttle inputs. The steering feels good as well for a front engine GT, and it's it's lighter than a DB11, but it's not a light car. But certainly the front end feels good, steering is good, it's nice overall. Yeah, so far so good. What do you do then when you have a big, slightly damp corner? Well, obviously you do this. It's almost impossible for me to give the car the full power in today's weather, but even up to 100 miles an hour, it's a lot of it, believe me, an awful, awful lot. So, had enough fun exploring then out on the track, so let's head out of Dunsfold Park onto the roads to go drive it, I suppose, in a more reasonable, normal environment. I'm not going to go and sit on the motorway today, but then I can think a little bit more about how would this car be for me. Obviously a little bit more as what it's like as a car, but would it fit into my garage as well? Here's a test for the car then, straight out of Dunsfold onto a particularly bumpy and, well, very puddly road right now. So I'm actually going to put the suspension back into its softest setting. I think that would be fair on the car, but I'm going to keep it in Sport Plus because I'm completely and totally addicted to this noise. We will head, well, on the local roads. We're in some nice countryside just outside of London. The perfect place really to enjoy a drive and get more of a feel of what this car is about. And already, I mean, it's not the softest, of course, because they have to firm up the suspension and rework it to handle this power, to give it the dynamics, to give it the characteristics that it has. But the sound is the number one thing. Hey, it's not too bad. Oh, it just propels you when you shift. It just launches the car forward. It's really, really quick. So I'm coming into this, as a big Aston Martin fan, let's be real. I've had my Vantage Roadster, my Vantage GT8, my father in the same time has had a V12 Vantage and then a DB11, and my Vanquish, of course. So 5 Aston Martins in the family, I guess we could say. Clearly shows that we're fans of these cars. So I haven't yet driven the DBS. I've been looking forward to driving it. I'd hoped for an opportunity. We've got some squeaky brakes at the moment because of the track driving, of course. I'd hoped for a slightly earlier chance to drive it. I would have loved to, you know, join the press drive, but unfortunately I wasn't invited to do so. So this is the first time that I've been able to take one out and get a feel for it. But in the short time I owned my Vanquish, it was about 6 months or so, it went on Fuel Faction around Italy, it went on the Where Schmee tour, so in 6 months I think I did about 6,000–7,000 miles in the car. Maybe it was a touch more than that in the end, but clearly it got some good driving, and it was a car that I just found so good to use and enjoy in general environments, to just jump in and drive. And it had so much elegance and style. It's an Aston Martin, particularly here in the UK. Wherever you go with an Aston Martin, it just oozes class in a way that nothing else really does. Other traffic lets you go. People admire it in petrol stations. And even with my GT8, which is a little bit bonkers in the blue and orange dual tone, I get exactly that as well. So you get that vibe and feedback from the general public in the car, which is quite nice to talk about the car and share the enthusiasm. And yes, even though we've got some traffic, I'm shifting more than I need to. I'm sorry, it's my usual trait. Just to experience more of the sound in the short time I've got to drive the car. As you can tell, the sun is going down very, very fast this afternoon. So, should I buy one? Well, I had a Volante Vanquish convertible. Aston Martin's name for their Grand Touring convertibles is always Volante, and I think it would be a fair assumption that eventually a Volante version of this will come. And a big part of it for me was, just going down this way, that open top experience with this engine noise. You can imagine if you had, let's say, the windows down, it's probably going to be even louder. Yeah, immediately. Just listen to this. Amazing. So yes, the open top experience is something else. I would say it feels exciting in a way that when I drove the new Vantage, I didn't quite attract the new Vantage as much as I hoped I would. But this is definitely a car that I'm immediately feeling at home and I'm immediately enjoying and liking. So, should I buy one? It could be on the radar. I think a Volante is more likely to be on the radar, and there is the small question of depreciation. It's an Aston Martin V12, it starts at £225,000, and plus some options you're nearer towards 300-ish. The Volante will be about 25 or so more than that, more than this I guess. You could keep it a lower spec and you might just touch over 250 or so, but there's still a potential long way to fall, which is quite scary if you look at what DB11s have done, for example. But as a car, it is awesome. It feels awesome. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the floating tablet style in here. I just feel like it's a bit forced in, and the displays could be maybe a touch nicer. But hey, this is about a car to drive, and well, need I say any more? It sounds pretty good to me. So all things being considered, yeah, it's up there. It's becoming increasingly hard to keep modern cars entertaining, but in here, with this amount of power through your right foot, you are very aware of what you're doing, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, which to me is what the experience of a car should be. It should be something you enjoy for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be because it's leery and wild, but obviously one of the benefits of this is that it mixes, well, like I said at the beginning, as Aston Martin call it, it's a brute in a suit. It mixes the appearance of an Aston Martin, the elegance, with the brutishness. And to think about that, versus its nearest rivals, you know, the likes of the 812 Superfast, they're very proud to say that this car will do 50 miles an hour up to 100 miles per hour in just 4.5 seconds, versus the 4.9 that it takes for the 812, and that's down to how much mid-range torque you have. And well, in every way I'm experiencing it, I'm very, 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 very aware of that. And the noise, it's not that naturally aspirated sound, to be fair. The more I'm getting familiar with this, the more I definitely can confirm that it's not that sound. But it is a very, very good sound in a completely different way. Well, not a completely different way, in a turbocharged way. Which of course is legislation, downsizing, all of that. But the good news is, it is still a V12. What a glorious V12 it actually is too. Anyway, we're nearly back at Dunsfold, and I'll show you more around the interior as well, and some of the features that are new for the DBS. Well, it has to be done, doesn't it? If we're back here, let the sound do the talking. I think this is probably my one last little run around at the moment. The guys are just packing up. Look at that sky up ahead of us. Line up towards 7,000 RPM. I don't really need to to do any of the talking, do I? The car does it all. Hold on. Okay. The fun has to come to an end. Well, the driving fun at least, for now. Maybe in the future, there's some more to add on this one. To have a quick run through of the interior then, you can see the light is fading very fast, but check out that sunset, beautiful. Anyway, the dashboard in front of me, in the center, you have the round rev counter, which changes display depending on your driving mode, so easily reachable from your thumb. You have the sport button just here, that's the view in GT mode. One press, it goes a little bit red, as you can see. One press more, you're in Sport Plus, and you can see that it goes, well, with the red dial around it, and listen to it. The burbles. It's such a cool sound. Then to the left, you have some driving information, your fuel, running a bit low at the moment. You have your damper setting down at the bottom, again, controllable from the button on the left-hand side. And then on the right, you have access to a lot of information, controllable again through the right-hand side. And at the moment, you can see we're in the settings for the ESP, which is so unusual to do it through software as opposed to a physical button. But back to home, you can see trip, navi, radio, media, all the controls that you would, I guess, expect to find in such a system. And then back into the traction toggle, so you have a few controls here for your telephone as well, and then the microphone over the other side. That all works as you would expect it. You've got very, very nice shifter paddles. They're fixed to the column as opposed to the wheel, but they are rather long, as you can see, give a great feel and are very, very, very nice to pull. And then you have the usual thing with an Aston Martin. So if you're in park, if you press D, it then goes into D mode, automatic. If we were back in park and you went into gear with a pull, you then go into first and it will stay in manual. It won't shift automatically. And I really, really like that. It's a very, very good system. I think it's a brilliant way to have brought that into the car, but we'll go back into park for the moment. We're not going anywhere. Beneath that, your climate control, air conditioning settings, and your Daimler Mercedes style controls for the central screen, which I've shown before in DB11 videos how this works, but it's basically the previous gen Mercedes system as opposed to being the latest, which has pros and cons. It works fairly well. I guess they didn't have to develop their entire own system. Brings in the 360 camera and that kind of thing, but perhaps could be slightly better. You have a new look to the interior, so have a look. You've got the chopped carbon fibre for the trim. The seats have been trimmed in Alcantara. You've got some leather inserts to make that design, the Aston Martin embroidery, the wings up here in the centre of the back. They look pretty cool, to be honest. I like the seats a fair amount in this car. The steering wheel, lots of talk about the squared off wheel. I particularly like it. I think it feels really good holding the steering wheel, so I'm a big fan of that. For the minute though, let's press the button and stop the car. Open it up, just come around and have a quick look at the engine bay. Oh, I've left the lights on. We will just put them into auto mode just for a moment. So you have the button down here, which actually releases the engine bay. And we can come around and have a quick look at this. Open it up, all a bit dirty at the moment. But in here, the 5.2 litre twin turbocharged V12, hand built in England in Gaydon, and you always get the plaque with the person who did your final inspection. But basically that is the power plant that causes so much happiness. And look at the louvres here. This is completely almost Formula 1 inspired with its fins, but that's all to control and direct the airflow and manage that as it comes around the side of the car. And if we just close this back down, give that a nice firm shut. And one more thing, I guess we should look at the luggage space available in the rear. So I've left the key inside the car, so we'll just press the button just here. That pops open the boot. Of course, it's a Grand Tourer. You can see, by the way, airflow that comes out of here. This is, again, comes through the car. Air comes in through various different places, to be honest, controlled and guided around and through, and there are even vanes underneath the car that are directing more airflow. But back here, you have a fair amount of luggage space. I guess you could fit a person in there if you needed to. You probably should never need to do that, but you can definitely get a few pieces of luggage and suitcases, and you can see the carbon fibre here, the complete carbon fibre body that the car has too. So all in all, it is a very nice car, it has to be said. I don't think I would go for it in this colour, in the orange, but in the dark red that's been seen, it looks spectacular. But look at that front end. Look at how menacing it is with that massive grille. It's almost Zagato-esque, like the Vanquish Zagato that came out, with how open that is and with the shape. The actual shape of the texture to the grille is all done to streamline the airflow through for maximum efficiency, to get as much air coming through it as it can. Headlights look cool with the design you've got inside them as well. But basically, all in all, it's definitely a very, very nice car. I would be really interested to actually compare one of these to a Ferrari 812 Superfast, which is definitely the nearest competitor. But for me, I'm a big Aston Martin fan, as I've said, so maybe one day that could be an option. Do let me know what you think. Should I look to get a DBS Superleggera? Let me know, I'd love to hear from you. But for now, that is it. The sun is going down. It's been a great day with Lovecars, so check out the videos that they've been filming here too. But I will catch up with you guys again very soon. Cheers!